This is the
legs. Quarterback's legs.
Fakes left, now taken off. Gonna run for it, he got it! And there he goes! Inside the 10, the 5. Oh, the play of the year in the NFL! Quarterback legs it was.
I said no spy on this play. I can't believe it. The rare mistake by Kansas City. There's times.
Hey guys, Anthony Testino, contributor for Eric Smith over on YouTube. Dolphins win 30-13, beat the Buffalo Bills at home. Fun Sunday. Definitely the best one so far this year. Trumps Atlanta by a mile. Beating Buffalo feels good, man. I know that there's, a bigger picture here at stake, and I know that there are definitely fans that pretty much live in misery and just want losses and, a change immediately. I get all of that. I really do. It's like we have come to live in this world of like extremes and absolutes where it's like, if you root for a win, you're okay with the mediocrity. Like, no. Like, where are you people deciding that that's how I think? No. I'm going to enjoy beating the Bills and not having to scroll Twitter and listen to all the people talking and, just making fun and pulling up stats and memes. No, thank you. No, thank you on that. But I can also see the big picture and not lose sight of that and simultaneously still want change and know that this game is just one game. It is possible, folks. So, I just encourage a lot of people, just settle down, man. Enjoy the day. Like, it was fun to be a Dolphins fan, at least for 3 hours yesterday, and then when you got on Twitter, it extended a little longer until you started seeing, the people that want to ruin the party, So again, they beat the Bills 30-13. They show what they're capable of on their best day. And no, you're not going to get, the team's best day every Sunday when they go out there. And that's straight across the board. Even the best teams in the NFL don't have their best day every Sunday. Now, their lows are higher than other teams, and that's why when they don't play their best ball, they can still win games and, win 12, 13, 14 games. And that's where Miami's, trying to get to, is where their lows are not, 56-10 blowouts against Baltimore or Buffalo in big games. They're tight. They're down to the fourth quarter, and then it's about finding a way to win. That's what we aspire to be, right? So yeah, just enjoy the Sunday. But again, it is one game. I know it's Buffalo, but it is one game. Just either side you're on, pump the brakes. Okay, this doesn't mean we're back or we're in the mix again, and you should be thinking playoffs. This also doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, this team doesn't know how to lose, doesn't even know how to lose right, and, we're ruining draft position. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When the good teams in the NFL never pick in the top 10, 15, 20. They're always 24, 25, 28, 30. Why can they sustain it? The answer is because they know what they're doing. So if Miami makes the right hire at GM and they start putting one foot in front of the other and not falling over themselves or trying to run too fast and just take their time and do things the right way, it doesn't matter where we draft. I understand maybe once because everybody wants the quarterback, but again, not every single one needs to be a top 5 pick. There's plenty of examples. So again, man, just enjoy the day. Like, Buffalo was a fun win. Guys look good. The young guys played well. The veterans played well. They played with fire. They were amped after making plays. They definitely took that one personal. And, I'm glad that they got it done. And I'm glad that they won it in the fashion that they wanted it, where It wasn't down to the fourth quarter. I'm glad that, Buffalo, it didn't come back and make it interesting. Like they really had a chance to beat somebody down after it feels like, they've been beaten down all year long with media and fans and don't get me wrong, the blame it's warranted when you don't go out there and put a good product on the field. Like they know that, but they're human beings, and when they win and they perform like that, they deserve to enjoy it, and we as fans deserve to enjoy the day. There's nothing wrong with clapping it up for 24 hours and then saying, okay, let's get back to work and let's refocus on the big picture, right? So yeah, I am expecting that this tape is going to be a lot more fun than some of the recent ones. So yeah, we're going to dive into it next. So I'm glad you guys are here. Glad you guys are going to check it out, and hopefully we all kind of walk away with a smile on our face after this one. So all right, let's get into it, guys. So the first one we're going to look at here is getting down toward the end of the first quarter, about 3:30 left, and as you can see, this ends up being a 2-yard run up the middle for James Cook. So with this one, it kind of continues the trend, right, of we're paying attention to the younger guys that we know are going to be here and be part of the future, regardless of the GM switch, right? Those GMs come in, they want to put their own fingerprints on the roster, they want to make changes, they want their guys, they want the team to reflect, maybe their core values as to what they really believe a, championship team looks like, or championship roster, and where the strengths versus where the weaknesses are, that kind of thing. But there are definitely guys on this team that are going to be here going forward because either contracts, are too difficult to get out of, and it just makes more sense that that's something that happens further down the line, or, the youth, which kind of also falls into the contract category, right? Because they're signed up for 4 or 5 years, with the option, obviously. But, again, these are guys that are going to be here, right? That's kind of where our focus has been. So Jordan Phillips is one of those guys. And again, we've talked about where they started. We talked about where they're at. We've talked about, potentially where they could get to and how important they can be to the team. So, here you're going to see Jordan Phillips in just basically another day at the office for this guy. I've grown to really love this dude. I mean, he's just, he's always ready to go. He brings his lunch pail to work and is just ready to smash heads, man. I mean, look here, right? Takes on a double team, gets knocked off balance. Last week we saw him on one knee fight off a guard and then, be part of a tackle. And here is the same thing, right? Like falls off balance, but maintains the leverage. He's got the arm extended in there. And then, Dotson actually ends up flowing too far and removing himself from this play. Now, over here, this is actually where they wanted this run to hit. But Jordan Phillips kind of blowing it up, and Bradley Chubb squeezing the hole, and Phillips not getting pushed out, kind of contracted this whole thing here. So Cook is going to end up sticking his foot in the ground and trying to cut it up this way. And there is an opening here. He's got, this guy's got Benito sealed pretty well. And then if this guard could, seal Phillips, this run probably gets to the second or third level if Minkah's not there. And again, Dodson's going to end up flowing and getting worked and pushed outside and sealed off, right? But look what Phillips does, man. Right? Boom. Gets rid of him and puts a good pop on James Cook. I mean, that's a stud play from a defensive lineman. And then when you talk about the fact that he's a rookie in doing this, like, it's just awesome stuff, man. You take on a double team, get knocked off balance, but you stick the foot in the ground. Look at his base right now. Like he should be getting knocked off and probably end up on his ass, and he's not gonna be. That foot, he sticks it and pushes off, fights back, doesn't give up. He actually he's now winning this rep and is just basically waiting. Okay, boom, see you. And then the hit, man. I mean, that's a pop in the hole against the running back. And those guys don't like that. So, yeah, I mean, just more and awesome stuff that shows up just about every week with that guy. Lots to be excited about going forward. Every team needs those kind of guys, man, and I really think, Miami's got two good ones between Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips, and I think those guys will be here for a long time, or at least they should be. So, all right, we'll move on. So the next one we're going to take a look at is actually the next play, and this ends up being a catch for -4. And, I mean, this is, again, the way defense is supposed to look, and for so many different guys from all over the place and new faces and the youth and guys, kind of working their way back like Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, guys that hadn't played football in a long time. It was tough for the defense, man. They definitely struggled early on. And, a lot of it I really thought was just very correctable, like immediately, and it proved to not be. Not that I was wrong about my expectation, because I still believe those things, but they're doing them now, or at least they did them in this game. And, there's been a couple reps that are like this already, where if you've been following along, you've heard me talk about not bumping guys at the line of scrimmage, or when you have the opportunity to, eyes in the wrong place, letting receivers just run from zone to zone. And, it's as if like nobody's paying attention to them. Nobody knows how to pass off anybody. When a guy settles down, nobody attaches. They just kind of let him sit there, 45 yards away. And it's been too easy for quarterbacks to complete passes and just kind of stay ahead of the chains. And the first play of the game, actually, they did a great job of this as well. But I'm going to show this one here, and you look here, right? So you had a little bit of motion from Shakir at the top. Basically, it's like a quick check, like, okay, let's see if who's covering him and how they're gonna play it, zone man, little things like that. So you get a flat here, and Brooks is in position to come up, make the tackle immediately. Then you get Juju Brents here, right? Okay, he settles down. Juju's gonna come up, and this is fine. If this ball gets thrown, Juju has time to step up and hit immediately, try to scrape, knock the ball out, whatever. Bottom line is that he's here, right? Then you have this window. Okay, if Josh tries to rip this, there's potential for Juju to lean in and come this way, make a play. There's potential to, if he tries to layer it somehow, there's potential for the safety here. Like I think he probably could have taken a shot here. But again, also just not a super easy throw either. You also have the pocket collapsing a little bit here. It's you didn't have too much pressure, but it is slowly collapsing, right? Like it's getting worked back into his face to the point where he doesn't necessarily want to stand there and wait any longer. It gets rid of it. But you come down to the other side here, and you see these guys are prepared for that. Right, so we discussed this this here, and now Josh's head, he's back here already, and he sees this and says, I don't like that. So he's coming back to the left here, and he's working, and if you watch down here, Jack Jones is attached to the guy sitting. Again, he didn't leave too early, creating a window in here for Josh to throw, right? And Minkah carried until this no longer became his responsibility. And then now, Minkah's in position to handle this and keep an eye on this, while Jack Jones was pretty much anticipating, like, go ahead, throw it, I'm ready. And as soon as he did, he's up there and boom, we have a tackle. I mean, that's how defense is supposed to be played. It was really well done. And again, like, not the first rep I've seen them like this, where, they are attaching the guys, settling down in routes. They are passing things off. They are anticipating throws instead of just letting guys settle down and it's like, oh, okay, go ahead, see if he throws it there. And I'm going to read eyes. Like, no, their eyes, they had a little bit better eye discipline. Like, you can even see it right there, right? Like, watch Dodson's eyes. His helmet turns. Now he's watching these guys. Where in other games and in his real bad reps, his eyes are solely on the quarterback, as if he thinks that he has the time and the ability to ball hawk and say like, oh, I'll just read his eyes and I'll jump whatever he does. Like, it hasn't happened yet. So why don't we try, playing with some real fundamentals and do it this way, see how things turn out. And here, okay, so right, still reading. I mean, that's the longest I've seen his eyes be on the route combination and reading the receivers all season long. And it was well done, and again, this is how you play team defense. So, again, I'm going forward and kind of doing this as I go through the tape. So I'm excited to see how many more times reps like that show up. And again, some of these guys doing these things, like, we don't know if they're going to be here going forward. We don't know if this is going to be consistent and, whatnot. There's a lot of questions, right? But what I can be confident in and what I can be happy about and take some solace, right, is the fact that, okay, these guys are being coached and taught to do the right things. It's simply just a matter of, are they going to do them? So when I see this and see the fundamentals show up, like I said, this has nothing to do with, oh, he's young or he's inexperienced. This is simply like, are you playing with fundamentally sound or are you not? And a lot of the time, I thought the answer was no, especially earlier. But we've seen more of it going forward, and continue to see it, in plays like this. Same thing here. Look where his helmet's looking. He's reading and reacting. Nope. Same with Jack. The only guy that's really looking at Josh looks like Minkah, because he kind of knows now he's in a little bit no man's land. And if anybody has the ability and green light to read eyes, it would be Minkah. And then you have Jordan Brooks, who knows what his assignment is, and he's flowing to it, and he's just trying to figure out, are you going to throw that or not? So yeah, just much better team defense. And again, like, we all have our opinions on guys that we want to stay, want to go. I think some of these guys are really doing a good job as far as saying, hey, bring me back, or auditioning for their next team. And that's to be seen when we bring in our new GM. But, these guys, obviously, when you can hold Buffalo to, 10 points, I mean, you had a pretty damn good day. And this is what it looks like when they play good defense and complementary defense. So, yeah, we'll continue on. But, this so far is the second rep that I've seen like that. So it's nice to know they're capable. It's nice to know that it's being taught the right way, and when they do those things, you can have some success. So again, part of the reason why I say that I don't think Miami is necessarily as far away as some may think. Okay, and I will leave that thought at that, and we can discuss that at a later time. But yeah, good stuff here, good rep, and we'll keep it moving. All right, so this ends up being a 4th and 1, and I really just wanted to tip my cap to preparation, and being ready for things like this. We saw, I think, the Chargers game or Cleveland game. I think it was the Chargers game, where they had kind of lined up in like a formation that really looked like it was going to be a QB sneak, and pretty sure it was the Chargers. So obviously you factor in the size of the quarterback as well. Herbert's a big guy, right? So you look at Josh, and again, this is something they do on the regular as well. So 4th and 1, midfield, big situation, obviously. And you look at Miami, they've kind of packed the middle, right? Shrunken down. You got guys right over the ball in the gaps, trying, and then you start creeping guys up here, into the gaps that, in between them. And they're fully ready for a run or a QB sneak, right? But I don't know about you guys, but I look at that situation and kind of say, like, with Josh Allen, it feels like it's almost a no-win. Like, if they want it, like, they'd really have to screw it up in order to not, pick up what they need. And I really give these guys, I mean, again, look, this is the sell here of, like, I'm going to push Josh and we're going QB sneak here. And again, when you see the way these guys react, I give him all the credit in the world for not being completely 100% sold out on the QB sneak or the run, and just being and leaving somebody wide open for a big play. Because again, going back to the Charger game, Miami had done this, and then they ran like an outside toss or something, and it ended up being like a big gain for Vidal. So again, they learned from their mistake and said, like, okay, we're prepared for both. If we give up the yard, it is what it is. Next time we try to keep you 2 yards short, so you can't necessarily do that. But again, if you watch the way they read and react, like, look at the way all these guys pick somebody up. You're attached here. Jack Jones finds this guy. Trader finds him. Jordan Brooks has got Cook there. And Juju's in the right spot. He's in the flat to help. And you got somebody now pressing down on Josh, which he's fading back, so it's not like he can really take off, and turn the corner or anything. Like, he's not really in a position to do so. He's really at this point kind of committed to throwing the ball somewhere. And you look at, again, like, all these guys are smothered. Like, they were on it, man. I tip my cap to them. This is very well done, and this is coaching. This is coaching and then players executing. So they were on their P's and Q's, man. And again, like, considering that we saw them get burned by something earlier, it's Buffalo, it's Josh Allen. It's a situation that you've seen Buffalo do a bunch of times and be successful. And on top of all that, they were ready for it. And then Minkah to finish off the play with a box out, to go up and get it, knock it down. I mean, look at him. Like, Minkah's been pretty quiet. Seems like he kind of keeps to himself. He is a quiet guy. He leads by example, right, from what we've heard from others. We all kind of wonder, like, is he even enjoying his time? Does he still want to be here? Dude, when you see that, like, that's why I really want Minkah to be part of what goes on forward. I understand, trading your veterans and getting draft picks and all that stuff, but sometimes you need some guys, to lead the way. That's just my opinion and how I see it. Maybe there's a little bit of fandom there because I am a big Minkah fan, but I do think I can make a pretty strong case to keep that guy going forward and, be one of the leaders that, that get this team going in the right direction. So awesome to play, awesome to see, good play, and, good coaching, good stuff by Weave too. So keep it moving, good stuff. All right, so the next one we're going to look at is shortly after the last clip, beginning of the second quarter here. This ends up being a no gain, right? And this is, we're still here kind of focused on the run defense aspect. I've talked a lot about, the improvements and, where we started, what the first month looked like, and where we're at now, right? A lot of the talk that I've, the stuff that I've been talking about, a lot of it has been player driven, right? Giving, guys credit for their improvements, playing better, better leverage, better technique, being more confident. But I also think Anthony Weaver deserves his credit as well. That guy took a beating early on in the year, and I think he kind of deserves his kudos at this point, because from my eyes and what I saw, and not all the time is it super, obvious as to what they're doing, but I think they were playing with a little bit more like two gap assignment, kind of defense for the defensive line. For some of the people that may not necessarily understand that, that's kind of like, okay, you have Butler here. He's going to be responsible for that gap and that gap. And then I think this is Benito, right? So that gap and that gap. And then here you have this gap and this gap, right? So what they do is they take on a guy and hit him with a hard punch to try to, basically take advantage of the contact and the point of attack, right, and the line of scrimmage. And then what they do is get their arms extended, and then it becomes leaning their heads and tilting their heads left, right, and peeking around to try to see where the run is going, and if they need to disengage to make the tackle, or if they can steer, the guy that they're holding on to, and maybe he can affect the play that way, where, maybe he can squeeze him into a hole and force the running back to to cut back or bounce it outside or whatever the situation may be, right? But that's the bottom line, is that when you do that, guys are not really looking to penetrate and make plays down in the backfield. They're stalemating here, but they want to have control of the offensive linemen and then be responsible for, the gap to the left of them and the gap to the right of them. And you have to play with really good technique. You got to be strong. It can be tough to do, but if you do it well, it can keep the linebackers clean, and you can get it done that way. You need certain kinds of players, and again, you're asking, younger guys to play with, like elite technique basically, and I think maybe that's where they ran into some trouble. And I have no issue with, putting guys in uncomfortable situations sometimes, because that is what it is. Guys are going to have to learn, and in this situation, guys have had to learn on the job. Like, it just kind of comes with the territory, right? But I think part of the reason why we're having more success now against teams and in the run defense area, and why we're seeing a lot more tackles for loss, and Jordan Brooks is just heating up and becoming and looking like the monster that we kind of got last year and thought he was going to be again this year. It's like as if they've released him like off his chain. It's fun to watch, man. But here, the difference being, like, when you have a one gap system, now you have Bradley Chubb responsible here, Brooks responsible here. Let's say he's responsible here, Dodson's responsible here, and then, this might be outside. Actually, it'd probably be Jack. Realistically, I really wouldn't want Jack filling up anything inside. So let's say he's responsible here, Jack's responsible outside, and then Trader would have to come up and fill here, right? So now you obviously can see every guy is responsible for one gap, right? Hence the one gap assignment, defense. And I think, it's a little easier to play. And I think, it allows guys, a little more freedom to, in a way, it's like freedom as in, like, go and try to make a play and blow it up, where two gapping allows, linebackers the freedom to just scrape the line and pick and choose where they want to go, trying to read where the run's going to hit. So, each defense has their own type of freedom, but I prefer this because I think it does allow you, to make more plays. And don't get me wrong, it does allow for bigger runs to hit against you, because if, somebody is not in their gap and getting their assignment done, a big run can hit. I mean, it's almost immediate, especially with aggressive linebackers. It can almost be immediate to the third level. But for me and my mentality, like, I'm a little bit of a risk taker. Like, I want to make plays, right? I'm a bend but don't break kind of guy, but I still want to be the aggressor and make plays. So going to this one gap here, I love it, and I think you're kind of seeing the benefits of it, here and, like, lately playing out, right? So flow with a little bit here, and then, Jordan Brooks just has such a good feel. And I really think, like, he's now shining because he's kind of gotten this green light with the switch, to more of maybe a one gap system, one gap defense. He's a guy going forward that, not exactly, spring chicken. He's not old either, but he's the kind of guy, again, like, I heard his name floated out around trade deadline time too. Like, could they do that? Because he does have a contract that's, like, it's very doable if they were to want to get out of it at some point, or, trade. I know they just restructured him, but, he's the kind of guy that, can lead. I think I would really love to give him another monster next to him, more of a true middle linebacker, and let him play more of the will, which is what I really think he wants to do. And Dotson, just to me, hasn't been very good. He's flashed. He's made some good plays. Of course, when you play, 50 plays a game, yeah, you're gonna make some good plays, but it's the misses and the negatives that are really hurting me, in my opinion of him. But again, this is I just really wanted to kind of shed light on the fact that I think It's not just players evolving, it's Anthony Weaver adjusting and figuring out answers to problems. And going forward, I think a lot of people had talked about, like, oh, Anthony Weaver needs to be the first one to be fired at one point. And then there was also like the other side of the spectrum where, okay, if you let go of McDaniel, well, Weaver is going to be the guy that takes over the interim head coach. So like, which one is it? And in reality, is like I said, I want to give, like, the guy can coach, and I can appreciate the fact that he's a leader of men, and he can bring emotion and seriousness, and I'll probably never forget that press conference when he was asked about some things on defense, and then the way he addressed the answer kind of gave me like chills. Like, the guy, he's the kind of guy that you want to run through a wall for. So he, again, be happy and be excited about the player development. They've definitely been much better, but don't forget to give Anthony Weaver his flowers too. All right. So moving on. Okay, next one here kind of piggybacks off the last clip that I showed. This is just a phenomenal play by Jordan Brooks. And again, just like, look at the run defense. It's so much improved, man. But I just want to give Jordan Brooks a quick little standing O here for this effort and this play. So you get a zone left run, right, to the weak side. Cook sees and then wants to bounce this the way these guys are blocking and holding this up. This is meant for Cook to, like, wind it back here and try to hit, and find a hole here on the backside, which technically is the strong side because that's where all the extra blockers were. And you get ththey look like they're doing a good job here. Judon's coming free. Knox looks like he's reaching for Trader. And, unsure of kind of how this play would have turned out if Jordan Brooks didn't do what he did. So let's just keep an eye on what number 20 does. You're going to get the center, try to come up to the second level and seal him up here. And I'm going to let it play it fast and in regular motion so that way you truly see what he did. But watch it one more time. So he's going to give him, when he gets up there and realizes that's the guy that's trying to block me, he's going to give him a quick little shimmy shake to, just as a way of, like, trying to make the guy miss. And then what he ends up doing is sliding underneath the block and then filling and making the play. Right? So little shimmy shake, slides underneath, ducks underneath the block, and then comes up and sticks the running back. Ooh. And along with Trader, right? Trader coming in from, the backside and doing a good job of, like, not letting it turn back and wind back. Knox pushes him, in towards the pile. But again, that's mostly Jordan Brooks, and he kind of took care of that one on his own. Damn good player, man. For me, I'm not going to go too far into this because it's more so in the past, but I was never a huge Jerome Baker fan, and I've been recently talking a little bit more about the linebackers. When we signed Jordan Brooks, I knew this guy was capable of so much more, and if Miami could figure out how to use him, this dude was going to shine because athletically he can do all of it. So really happy with Jordan Brooks, and again, just a guy I really hope that stays and is part of the now and the future, at least until until it makes sense to pass off the torch to somebody else. Good leader, good player, good play. All right, next one is going to be from a new guy we haven't really talked too much about because he really hasn't been on the field, all that much, and he got a starting opportunity this week against Buffalo, and he definitely made the most of it. So this is a guy talking about Juju Brents. He is 6'3", 198. Just for everyone out there who's a little bit unfamiliar with him. He was taken in the second round, 44th overall. So I mean, this is a top 50 prospect. This is somebody that had fairly high expectations, and for whatever reason, didn't make the Colts final 53 roster. And Miami put a claim in and were awarded him before the season started. And, we're at a point where the injuries have piled up. They're, using anyone and everyone that they have. And with Rasul going down and probably being our most consistent player, I would argue, on defense, wasn't the best combination going into the Buffalo game. Got, little scary thinking about, like could be Jack Jones and Ethan Bonner for, 60 plays. Could be Jack Jones and, Jason Marshall if they bump him back outside, whatever the case may be. Juju definitely, when you got word that, he might be starting and he was out there pregame, definitely, created a little intrigue, and he did not disappoint, So here you get him one-on-one with Keon Coleman, who I'm going to tell you right now, I've never really been a fan of, and he is somebody that just has all the athletic ability in the world, but he struggles to separate for whatever reason, and he runs an out and up here. Juju's now fooled by it, and I mean, again, picture perfect play, knocks it away with the right hand while the left one is kind of guarding the receiver. So yeah, I mean, he played great. This is somebody that maybe he's found a home. You can't look at every single guy that has a good game that you get from somebody else as like, oh, maybe he's an answer in Miami. But considering that he was a second round pick and his athletic traits and how he looked, I definitely think he's somebody that you want to see a lot more of going forward and push the limits as to what he's like truly capable of. And, maybe in this case, maybe you can be a little more excited, and think, hey, there is a chance that this guy could be a long-term answer in Miami. We'll see. He was all over the field, had a fumble recovery, played very well in coverage, man zone. And he had a pass breakup on the opposite side of the field that was just like that too, where Josh tried to put one over the top of him and in front of the safety, and Juju reached up and tipped it, and I'd say like half the time, safety might have had a chance to make a play on the ball depending on his positioning, but yeah, those 6'3" corners that can move like they're 5'10", those guys are a major problem for offenses. So yeah, he's somebody we'll have to pay attention to, and yeah, was really really impressed with the day that he had. He started and fell right in line, and he got the memo as to what they wanted to do against Buffalo, and he contributed in a big way. A real quick look here at another play that Jordan Phillips makes, doing exactly what he does. I mean, he's just steady Eddie when it comes to this. I mean, he's just a rock in the middle, and it's going to be important for Miami's run defense going forward. When you want to be one of the upper echelon teams in the league and consistently win, stopping the run is one thing that I think, for me, is a common denominator. You need to be able to do it. This is why, listen, I love beating Buffalo, but this Buffalo team is not one of the best ones that they've had in the last few years. And I really don't think that they have a chance this year, to go Super Bowl. I really don't. I don't think the defense is good enough. I definitely don't think the run defense is good enough. So unless they have a drastic change for some reason, they're not going to hold up when it comes to playing, Kansas City and, some in Baltimore when, they want to get the run game going. They'd have to dedicate a lot more bodies to it, and I think that just is going to leave them susceptible to then the pass defense. So, yeah, for me, Buffalo, it's not the strongest Buffalo team, but not to say, that they're weak or anything, because they are still the Buffalo Bills, still have Josh Allen, and they still do have a bunch of damn good players. So, not taking anything away from Miami's victory yesterday, but as I was saying, when you want to, be one of those upper echelon teams, you have to stop the run. Jordan Phillips is going to be a guy that's a key cog in making that happen for a long time. So I'll just watch it here. Again, takes a double team. I mean, he doesn't even feel the second guy. Like, what are you doing? You might as well just move on up because he ain't going nowhere. I mean, again, another battle won. Starts to move inside, squeezes the hole, and him and Judon, end up making the tackle. But that's the way, again, it's supposed to look when you do it right. And this dude is starting to do it right, like on just about every play. It's pretty awesome to watch. So, yeah, just get your Jordan Phillips jerseys now. This is the 2-point conversion after Buffalo scores to make it 16-6. So, yeah, this is a major play in the game here. If Buffalo completes this, you're looking at 16-8, one possession game. And I think, for momentum, which football is a very momentum-based game, I think this gives Buffalo a big injection, of that, going forward for the rest of this game. And then who the hell knows, how it turns out. But the fact that Miami held them and kept it to at least a 2-possession game was humongous. I mean, each side knew just how big this play was. And, you had a great job here by Miami guys in coverage. They were fully prepared for everything and attached where they needed to attach and didn't really give anybody any room, no free releases. The only guy that was really free was the check down who ended up catching it, and then he had 2 guys meet him before he got to the goal line. So awesome job. You got protecting here and, outside here, if he is going to break out, you got somebody protecting that, at the goal line, which is where a lot of teams like to run stuff, front goal line, back goal line, or, back end line. Keon Coleman's pushing vertical, quote unquote vertical, but to get to the back of the end zone, right, and give Josh a big target back there where he can throw it up. Schrader does a great job of kind of mirroring where he's at. We're attached over here. We're good here with Willie Gay. So again, like they did a great job, and this is why Josh, there wasn't a whole lot of pass rush. He's got all the time in the world, and he's forced to come back over here and check it down to Shakir. And he's got space, to make a guy miss and get in here. But, Jack does a great job. I struggle to say great because it looked really ugly. But the bottom line is that he did his job. He slowed him down enough where, he had some help. Like tackling anybody in the open field in the NFL is tough. And Shakir's a shifty guy. And obviously, with the slip, you have to keep in mind that it did just downpour there, right? So you're dealing with the elements there as well. So, again, Minkah comes up and kind of finishes off the tackle, saves the day, and keeps it at 16-6. This, again, major play in this game. Major. I can't stress that enough. Big play. And, to watch the enthusiasm after was awesome. Again, I've stated before, I'm a big Minkah fan, but with how reserved he is, a lot of people have questioned, does he want to be here? And even myself, where I'm like, oh man, I don't even know. I feel bad for this guy. His 2 stints in Miami are the worst years we've had in the last decade, right? But when I see this again, these guys, they really set out to just end this Buffalo narrative and streak. They were tired of it, and they came out and did that. So again, happy for them. I know I enjoyed my Sunday a hell of a lot more than the other, some other ones. So, yeah, again, these guys, they deserve it. They gave it a lot of, their all basically, yeah, I think we have to commend them for that. So, good stuff here. Miami comes out on top, in the big play department. And, yeah, I really think, again, this is one of these, major turning points in the game. 2-point conversion, sometimes they don't it's only a 2-point conversion. This was a very big one. So good stuff by Miami, good stuff by Minkah, great coverage, good work. I made a mistake earlier. I actually thought that this was Juju Brents, and I was in and out, a little busy while I was watching the game, and yeah, I thought this was Juju. I caught this real quick, but didn't stay to see the replay. Just caught the number, the look. Thought it was Juju, just because of the bigger body too. And I had noticed that Marshall was playing inside earlier, and here he's on the boundary, and he gets tested, deep by Coleman. Right, Buffalo's kind of in comeback mode. Got to take some shots. It's really one of the only ones that Josh will throw it up to. You get that out and up again, And, he's not worried about this. He doesn't get trapped by this. There's nothing else in his area. So, he plays this well and goes up and knocks the football away. And this is what I was talking about. Like, sometimes you get a safety or a second guy in the area if they're anticipating that, and those tips become picks. But, Marshall, again, another guy, that I was just kind of having a conversation with Eric on Twitter a little bit, when it came to, the Brents starting news and how that affected other things. And that led into kind of like, okay, well, what's Jason Marshall then? And I don't think it's fair to totally judge and evaluate Jason Marshall quite yet. This is a guy that's played like nothing but boundary and had pretty much had for, all of camp. Then, Miami loses some guys and they're in a position where they go, well, what the hell do we do? So they slide Jason Marshall in. He flashes, some of that physicality, while he's in the box, makes a play or two in preseason and practice, and it's like, okay, well, let's run with this and see where it goes, right? Then we got to this season. The defense in general doesn't look good, and Marshall is part of that. He gets picked on, right? Then he gets hurt, and then eventually, leads us to, today, where he's back outside, it seems like. But again, he also played some inside in this game from what I saw. And, it's good to have those inside outside guys. But until he really settles in, I don't think it's fair to evaluate. Like that's a lot on the plate of a rookie to, inside in the nickel is a completely different world than it is playing on the boundary. There's so many more things you need to be, you need to be aware of and account for when you're inside compared to being on the boundary. So, for a rookie, right, the whole thing is not to put too much on their plate. You don't want to overwhelm them. You don't want them thinking too much. You just, you want them, in pretty straightforward positions, right, where they can just kind of play and play fast. Like, obviously, they have to learn, but you don't want to just throw them completely into the fire, right? So, going forward, you watch the way, he plays this play and this rep, and, it's like, yeah, there is something to be excited about there, and the fact that they even thought that he was capable of playing inside, they could have done something else there. And again, he wasn't great in there, but, again, understand all the ingredients to, that decision and that move to play him in there. And, again, he plays this very well. So, I don't know. Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, Miami's got Juju Brents and Jason Marshall as their boundary corners in 2026 and they're good to go. But I'll tell you what, it'd be nice, So again, it's just you're looking for flashes. You're looking for things that, the young guys do. You're looking for improvement and, things to get excited about. And I think realistically, these are two guys that, we can be excited about. Whether they're starting caliber or they're, depth and role players, we'll find out. But I would like to see Jason Marshall get more burn, at the boundary. It's tough, right? I don't know if Jack Jones is part of, this movement going forward, but he's another one too. That's, he's played well. He's played well too. Like he's had his moments where he's been beat, but that's life as a cornerback in the NFL, So, considering where they started, all the question marks, going into the season and how bad everything really looked, Miami's kind of put together a nice little group there, including even Rasul, who we'll see if Miami wants to keep a veteran around going forward. Again, we have no idea what's going to happen going forward because we don't have a GM. We have nothing to base any of our, assumptions or predictions off of yet, right? We need to see the guy in charge first and maybe get an idea of what we think he's, what he's about, what he wants to do, and how he sees things. So, but I'll tell you what, again, like Miami, these young guys, right? The whole, the last couple, like two classes, right? Like they continue to flash, man. And, if like none of them become superstars, well, every NFL team needs depth and solid starters and solid backup players, on it, because we've seen what it looks like when you don't. So, if these guys can even, even be, you get a couple starters and some bench out of it too. Like, okay, then we're still looking for superstars and guys that, move the needle. But, again, I think there's reason that, you can be, at least somewhat excited about some of the youth that Miami has on their roster, and that's including Marshall. So, again, to be fair to him, got to see more, want to see more of him on the boundary than I do inside at nickel. But this was a good play, and again, like he fell right in line. He got the memo. Everybody played pretty damn well in this game. And this is late in the game, 30-13. Game is now officially out of reach. Kind of celebrating, and relief has begun. And I'm not really going to dissect this play. This is kind of just, we're going to wrap it up here. But I figure this is a good one to just, have the finishing touches on the video here. It's well-deserved. I mean, this guy buries a running back in the backfield, Jordan Brooks, and he lets out, the animal scream there. But, yeah, man, this was fun to watch, honestly. Like, they were pretty dominant all the way through. The game was close with it, 2 possessions, 16-0, 16-6, for quite a while. And especially when Buffalo came out of the second half and moved the ball down the field, you kind of thought like, oh boy, here we go. We already know how this is going to go. We've seen this story before. And, you almost, as a Dolphins fan, I hate to say it, but like we're so scarred in that sense that like, you can't help but think that way, and you can't help but like to expect it almost, So, if he got the pick and, it settled like everything back down, and then later on, they're driving and it's typical Josh Allen, like literally carrying, Jack Jones, I think, but carrying defenders, like he's putting the team on his back, like metaphorically sort of did, right? Like all this stuff, you look at it and like you can't help but think when you're along for this ride. And then, you get Jordan Brooks out of nowhere, rips the ball out, and Minkah recovers. Like every time, that you kind of thought Buffalo was going to do something and make their move and, and hurt you, Miami found a way to stop that and punch right back, and it felt really good to be on that side of things, for once and very few times this year. So, again, my hat goes off to the way they played yesterday. I'm going to take the time to enjoy it. I enjoyed the film. It was fun to watch. Definitely still things to clean up, still mistakes, still some things that, have been going on for the last month, still some things that have been going on all year. But again, I think when you really look at the big picture, like, getting rid of Chris Greer is removing a lot of incompetence from the situation. And I think that alone is like addition by subtraction for one. Now, if Miami brings in, like let's say a quality GM candidate, somebody, from the list of big names that, we've heard of, and whether it be the guy in Philly, whether it be the guy in Green Bay, whether it be the guy in Chicago, whether it be a guy in Baltimore, whatever it is, or the guy in Detroit, there's a good list of candidates. And if Miami brings somebody in that oozes competence, that alone going forward is going to make Miami a better football team and consistently. So, we still have a lot to see as far as like what's going to happen with head coach, what's going to happen with quarterback, what's going to happen with, this guy, that guy, and everything else. There's a lot of uncertainty at this point. But, again, like we all understand that we're kind of, whether we go scorched earth or not, like we're kind of starting this evaluation and pretending and acting as if like we're at step 1 right now, right? So that's, okay, which young guys are going to be here and be part of this thing going forward and, get us in the right direction from a skill level standpoint, from a fit standpoint, from a personality and locker room standpoint, right? Like these, like it's all factors, right? Like everyone needs to have, like put their best foot forward, if they want to be here. If not, like, okay, then you're putting good tape on the field. So that way, somebody else comes knocking on your door when either it's time to trade you or free agency or whatever the case may be, right? But again, when you look at the growth of some of these guys and you look at, how much different they look, versus like the beginning of the season, like, okay, so that means what? That means these guys are developing and becoming more of what we anticipated. That means they're getting good coaching because they are developing. And now the coaches are having a little more success putting points on the board or stopping teams from putting points on the board, right? So it means that there is some competence level of coaching involved as well, right? So again, the season, when you look at the whole thing and the disappointing and how disappointing it is to be, 3-7 and, how bad it was in the beginning. But if you look at where we're at now, and again, I'm not saying everything's fixed and this is the effort and the play that you're going to get going forward every week. But there's enough there that, it's like, this is part of the foundation, right? This is part of the guy, this is part of the team, that you're going to see in 26 and 27. And hopefully these guys are, running on all cylinders and they've gotten their bumps and bruises out of the way, before Miami's ready to be a contender. And that way, when that time arrives, these will be the guys that are battle tested and went through, all the shitty days, for lack of better words, and persevered. So it's been fun. Definitely a fun week. Gonna savor this one a little bit. And, these are the ones you kind of don't forget, right? You can think about this for a couple of years down the line, and whether it means something or it doesn't mean anything, in the grand scheme of things, it's nice to be able to say, remember that game against Buffalo where they won 30-10, 30-13. Those are the good memories, right? So cherish it for what it is. Understand there's still work to do, and one game doesn't change everything, but it's hopefully a building block, and something that can push these guys forward and make them strive for this feeling again. Like, hey, isn't winning so much more fun than losing? Doesn't being locked into your job and focusing on your 1/11th, like, this is what it can look like. Shouldn't we do that instead of worrying about what the guy next to me is doing or not doing, and then I have to try to take over some of his job because I don't trust him to do so. So I hope that it's just a learning experience, and it's it's a catapult to to where where the Dolphins and where we want to go as a fan base, right? And the team that we want to represent us. So enjoy it, guys. Thanks for checking it out. Any comments, questions, concerns, you can hit me up on in the comments on YouTube or on Twitter, and hopefully we get some good discourse going. Appreciate you guys for watching. And go Dolphins, and F the Bills.